So you have the cell phones. That's one problem. Then you have the laptops, which is a second problem. What other type of devices do we have to be aware of that produce a lot of radio frequencies like that or EMF?
Your refrigerator. It's talking to your Wi-Fi.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? That's how they're getting there. So there's a transmitter there. In your living room, your TV has a transmitter in there. Your wireless speakers have a antenna in there.
And then the router.
The router and everything else. So I talk about that as bees in the room. One bee won't kill you, 1,000 will.
So you're being pretty much
right
everywhere.
Right. If I was to draw an image of that, there'd be all these waves going in this room.
And then these waves go into your body and they mess up with your cells.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Actually, that triggered something in my mind. You are all day bombarded with electromagnetic exposure. And the place where it's most serious that you try to deal with this is in the bedroom, as you know, right? Yeah. Because that has to be a sanctuary for sleep. Why? Because your body recovers. Your mitochondria recovers. All the things that get you back into a healthy state occur when you sleep. Well, when you're reading your laptop, your tablet, before you go to bed, what's happening? The blue light is going into your eye. It's influencing a hormone inside the eye. That is the switch for controlling the what is it for the
pineal gland? Melatonin?
No, melatonin. Yeah. It controls the melatonin. Why? Because for our whole existence, light was when the sun is out and you sleep when there's no sun. Well, that's still in the body, right? So if you disrupt that when you're looking at it, it's screwing around with that hormone, and you can't get to sleep. And you wonder, why can't you get to sleep? That's why you can't get to sleep.
And that's one part of the equation.
That's only one.
What if I sleep, right, with my phone next to the nightstand?
Right, yeah. I got to tell you a story of that. I'm on a podcast with this lady, brilliant lady, right? And she was telling me, you got to have a sanctuary for bed, right? And then she said, oh, no, not really. I have a cell phone mine. My husband has his. And we're, no problem. And I said, well, you really want to think about it because it's screwing around with your brain just as much as it's screwing around with other parts of the body. And when you're close like that, distance is your friend in RF. When it's really close, it's not your friend anymore.
Yep.
And you need to be aware of that. Well, anyway, about 3 weeks later, she called me up out of the blue. I thought our podcast was over. And she said, my husband and I, we took the phones away from our heads. We put them in the other room like you suggested. And we slept all night.
Wow, there you go.
It didn't have disruption. It really can disrupt your sleep. And when you have these devices around that have emissions like the Bluetooth from a tablet or like a cell phone transmitting RF signal into the room, you gotta get that stuff out of there. In fact, I'm working with some biochemists who are trying to solidify the impact through they call it cell danger response to from an RF signal. The body. Let me start. Dr. Navio, I think I mentioned to you, Dr. Navio, he talks about cell danger response. Cell danger response is a reaction the human body has that you don't control.
Okay.
It's like it's fight or flight. It's automatic or occurs automatically. And there is impact when there is a stressor. It could be a hammer. It could be a needle. It can be RF. It can be a volatile organic compound to that medical, multiple chemically sensitive. Then what happens is the body responds to that and starts going into different stages. including potentially impacting the hemoglobin levels and other parts of the body while you're sleeping. So, and I don't want to get too detailed, but the back of the brain stem controls a lot of automatic functions,
Breathing.
all that stuff, right? It's right there. It's not. It's exposed. There's no protection. And when you have something really close to you, there is some evidence that it's impactful to the controls in your body. And where are those controls from? Here.
Yeah. And what about people that use like Bluetooth headphones?
Oh God.
That's just hitting that cerebellum, and
I'm glad you asked that question. As I mentioned, a cell phone standard is 1.6 watt per kilogram. So in this little bit of area, it can generate a 1.6 watt. A microwave is 1,000 watts.
okay, gotcha.
Right? So it's really low relative to a microwave.
So it's more the cumulative effect than the repetitive
So
effect.
what happens is that 1.6 watt per kilogram is reduced when you go to Bluetooth with those earpieces
Yep.
down to 0.1,
Okay.
15 times less power level. Do you know 0.1 watts can impact the frontal lobe cell and mutate the cell?
Something that little.
That little.
In a 6-foot male or anybody.
Anybody. There's science that shows 0.1 watts can mutate a cell in the frontal lobe. And by the way, this is a really great story. There was research done that said there was no impact of cell phones over the last 10 years from a cell phone use. I looked at the data, and it was true. Some areas went down, like the back of the brain.
Okay.
But the frontal lobe went up 2%, compounding 10 years.
Wow.
So there is evidence that shows there's influence to the frontal lobe as a result of that.
So you have the frontal lobe, which is in charge of your pretty much your braking system for emotions, things of that nature.
All that, right.
So somebody that has damage to the frontal lobe is not going to interact properly with people.
And that's actually a fact that we know that through some research we've seen that there is impact to the frontal lobe, which is emotions, as you say. It's behavior stuff.
Yeah.
And younger, it's worse.
So you have kids that are like,
Right. It's worse because they don't have the protection of their brain, the blood-brain barrier and other things that sort of protect the skull. And then you have the cell towers. I'm changing the subject.
No,
Cell towers, there was a study over the last couple of years ago in Germany, and what they looked at a large population, I think a couple thousand people, and they found chromosomal changes to the body. Chromosomal
DNA, yeah.
is DNA,
Yeah.
mutating DNA from a cell tower, which is, I think, 750 feet away.
And this is a regular cell towers or those
Regular?
5D?
No, I haven't talked about 5. I'm going to talk about that right now. That's 20 watts comes out of a cell tower. 20 watts, right? And so they looked at 750 feet around the cell towers, and they found that the damage that was occurring, and it was significant enough and noticeable enough that it was clear evidence.
So a cell tower if you're going to buy a house, that's one thing for your health that you got to look into.
Oh, no
Number one, it
question.
looks like crap, but number two, it can affect you.
You want to be at least 1,000 foot away, at least, and that goes for overhead lights, the cables in the backyard.
Like power lines.
Oh yeah, that's the 60 hertz extremely low frequency stuff I mentioned to you earlier, and that actually can leukemia. For years has been associated with that reference exposure.
Wow.
And there's a lot of evidence of that being true. So, like cell phones, you do not want to be near power lines as well.
And then you add the 5G, which is coming up now.
That was the point I was going to make next, right? So a cell tower is 20 watts.
Okay.
A cell phone is 1.6 watts, right? Not too much power. 20 watts is not too much power, right? Well, it goes 5 miles.
Okay.
When you have 5G, most of 5G today is around the gigahertz range, like your cell phone. It's just filling in other spaces that were available on the relatively low end. The real challenge and controversy is around the higher rates that the FCC allocated for 5G, which is up to 300
Okay.
gigahertz, 300 billion cycles per second.
Wow.
So when you're at 20 watt, in this 20 gigahertz, which is used in small cell sites, the ones right in front of your house,
Yep.
they're at probably 40 watts. That's twice what a cell phone tower is. And it only goes 750 feet.
Jeez.
And they have 2 transmitters converging to one signal.
Does that double up like exposure? Yeah.
Yeah. This is unprecedented exposure levels. A normal house maybe has a couple of watts running around the house, but if you have your kids in the front yard next to the tower, it's 35 watts. After about 10 feet, that's a lot of exposure.
Absolutely.
And so that's where sort of the real controversy is about 5G is all of a sudden you're using very, very fast speeds at very, very high power levels, and we just don't know what's going to happen. Although, you may remember when you and I were in class in college, we went out and we protested, and somebody came out with a big round thing, and they radiated us. We didn't know that. That was at 90 gigahertz.
Wow.
The sweat glands that you have in your skin are like antenna for 90 gigahertz.
So it almost it's a receptor almost.
Right, it's
Yeah.
a receptor for it, right? So that's the part we really don't understand as a community is what the real impact of all these new technologies approaching us in the future. But we know so far there's been a lot of impactful stuff.
So we know there's an impact. We just don't know the extent
We
of it
don't.
yet.
Right. And that's the part. Like, there's a lot of research, as I said, like the Ramazani and the National Toxicity Program. That's all around roughly 1 gigahertz. So we have a lot of data. We already know it affects us. The pineal gland. Harvard did a study 4 or 5 years ago, and they said if there's a 2.4 gigahertz, which is a Wi-Fi, fluoride, and a certain mutated cell, which is normal.
Fluoride, like the fluoride we have in our
You
water.
drink. Yeah. Those 3 combinations, you're 3 times more likely to get cancer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We know that.
Okay.
So we know that the technologies we're using around us does have scientific evidence that there is an impact to the human body, and sometimes not a good one.
And what about it? So piggyback off of that, you have these younger generations that probably started using cell phones 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they're like, I feel great. I don't have anything, right? One of the things that I read in your book is that cancers such as glioblastomas, which are in your brain,
frontal lobe.
they take a while for them to develop.
It takes. That's a great. So it is absolutely true. When you get a cancer, it doesn't happen the day after the exposure. It happens 10 years after the exposure, and typically not sooner. So it's years and years and years away from us fully understanding the impact of these kind of exposures. And if you look at the science, we already know a lot of the impacts. Unfortunately, not necessarily good. And we were talking about like a hypersensitive.
Yeah. EHS.
EHS. When I started, there were a lot of studies at the time that talk about it at roughly 15 to 20% of the population. They get headaches, foggy thinking, their hands sting. There were symptoms that you can identify as electric hypersensitive responses to exposures. I've now seen 2 studies that show it up to 50%. So it's increased pretty substantially. And believe it or not, I'm more concerned about that than I am the dire DNA damage cell,
Sure.
because those are small populations typically that are getting that kind of damage. But the huge population is having symptoms like headaches. They can't go to sleep. They maybe don't quite breathe quite right at night. That's all influenced from RF.
Yeah. And then most of those people are going to say, it's like, oh, I'm either getting older.
Yeah, I go to a doctor like you, right? And you say, take 2 aspirin and come back tomorrow. Never going after the actual cause.
Yeah.
They don't understand that Wi-Fi that's sitting next to the bedroom is really influencing the state. In fact, turn it off at night. You don't need it on, right? So there are things you can do about it, but you also got to know these are the sources of potential problems in your home.
Yeah. Who do you think, from the medical perspective and the healthcare perspective, right? Let's assume I'm hypersensitive, right? I have EHS, electromagnetic hypersensitive syndrome, and I'm having headaches. I'm having the brain fog. Who are the doctors out there that are very good at getting outside of the box and being able to locate if you have these types of things? Is it the traditional medical doctor? Is it the naturopath? Is it the chiropractor? Who do you think?
It is a fact that the most responsive community is the chiropractic community. I don't know why, but it's clear they are open to understanding what the patient's concerns are, and that's driving many to get out of that traditional medical box. MDs, it's not in their protocol.
No.
They just don't know what questions to ask, and then
What to look for either.
they don't even know what to look for. Right. Yeah, I've mentioned a couple times hemoglobin. Well, if hemoglobin is high and vitamin D is low, all of a sudden that imbalance creates far more problems than just one or the other. It's the combination that creates the problem. A phlebotomist wouldn't know that.
Wow.
Why would he care? Right? Why would an MD care? Would okay, take a supplement, having vitamin D, and we'll solve that. And
Patching.
right? Yeah, they're not really. Why don't you take the stressor away? Why don't you remove the router at night? There are simple things you can do. People panic, for example, on the meters, the electrical meters that have that are typically on your garage. Well, should you be panicking about that? The answer is probably not. Why? Because it's 20, 30 foot away from you. They're down to 0.1 watts by the time it gets into your house. They only start at 1 watt. So you got to know those are the things you worry about, and those other things you don't worry about when you try to think about these challenges today. But having a physician coach what to do, particularly hypersensitive, we have seen many that are on that they literally can't live in their own house because they don't realize what the rules are to help reduce that exposure and the importance of reducing that exposure.
Right. And they're, number one, they're not aware.
They're
number
not aware.
two, they don't see it.
Yeah, they don't know.
And that's one of the challenging
right,
parts
you
of
can't
this.
see an RF signal. Right, exactly. So if you don't see it, it's not a problem. No, that's not true.